None of you seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
All right. It must be Sunday night. That means it's the Radio Baloney Live Sunday night edition. I'm your host, Richie Baloney. How's everybody doing? Good to see you guys. Turtles got the first like. Guess what? That is, I'm going to say, quadruple good karma for you. Everybody knows that we're streaming on Rumble, YouTube, X, and Locals. Whoever gets the first like on any of those gets not only the regular dose of one good karma, a very healthy dose, by the way, which in these troubled times, I mean, I got to say, you're going to need that. But you get, it could be double if you're the first like. It could be triple. It could be quadruple. It could be quintuple. That's the highest we've gone so far. But we're saying quadruple tonight. So that's 4 good karmas. I mean, come on. You're pretty much set after that, at least for a day or until the next stream. All right. Fences and goats. Fences and goats. This is the Fence and Goat Show. It's a TV channel. There's also a lovely alpine lady on there, too. She seems really nice. All right. So we'll come back to this when we do the chat, but let's just get to the menu. So we're going to talk about the continuing dysfunction in Canada. Canada is just dysfunctional in every single way. It's not getting any better. Guess what? Electing the Liberals for a 4th term has not helped with the dysfunction. It only seems to be getting worse. Weirdly, it's the last thing you would have expected from electing the Liberal Party for a 4th term in a row. It's the last thing you'd expect. I mean, after being terrible for a better part of a decade, just gutting the country, the last thing you'd expect is for them to do the exact same thing again. But in any case, yes, we have the Air Canada labor dispute, the Air Canada strike. This is now more dysfunctional because of intervention from the Liberal government, because they're the Liberal government. That's why. So we're going to talk about that. There's another point about this too, right? So we're going to just go through the menu of the things we're going to talk about. Then we're going to go back to the chat. Hopefully something will be happening there. And then we are going to come back and do these in detail. But this could affect, in a serious way, actually, the Liberals' fortunes in the next election. And I'll tell you why. But we're going to go through the menu first. And it appears that the chat, we've got a bug, it looks like. And the chat is not showing up on the screen as it should. Let me do a test here and let's see if we can get that up there. Let's see. Yes, it is working. Okay, good. All right. Well, now we know that. Woke mind virus. Look at this delicate flower. Look at this dainty flower, this dainty lass. We've seen this lady before, saying it's a beautiful black lady this time. So I'm starting to think this is now parody or satire or something, that it's not serious. I don't know. We'll try and figure it out. Let's see. The CBC is pushing very hard continuing to push very hard, the Canadian media in general, the unmarked graves hoax in Canada. It's just continuing. It's getting to the point of just being utterly and totally surreal at this point. We're going to get into that. World Economic Forum has a new head. Larry Fink, the guy from BlackRock, the guy who said you've got to force people to do things. You've got to force behavior. Sounds like the perfect guy for the globalist World Economic Forum. So he's now Klaus Schwab, who penetrated the Trudeau cabinet. And maybe that's not all. But he's leaving. And I guess this Larry Fink, the guy who really forced wokeness and DEI into everything instead of BlackRock. He's taking over the World Economic Forum. I guess he's going to be the new chair of the World Economic Forum. So yeah, and it's exactly who you would expect. It's exactly who you'd expect. Anyway, so they're continuing to be terrible. We got a little bit of stuff on Pierre Poilievre here talking about Jordan Peterson, which I thought was good, and I wanted to share that. We've got some memes. And actually, if we got an old Far Side cartoon, it's not really a meme, but I thought I'd throw it in there. But we got some other ones. We got some woke Canada stuff here. These people don't understand what this red hand they're holding up means. So I will explain it to you. And it's horrible, of course. These people are a bunch of dimwit. Everybody who doesn't know what it means, I'm sure some of these people do. But like that guy probably doesn't. In fact, that person probably doesn't. There's a few that probably do, but most of them, like that guy probably has no idea. And I'll explain to you why it's horrible. And they're idiots. Let's see what's going on. Kamloops, BC, home to the highest unemployment rates in Canada. And yeah, they need more temporary foreign workers, even though they've got the highest unemployment, or one of the highest unemployment, or one of the highest unemployment rates in Canada. So this is a problem where there's a scam where there's a constant demand for cheap foreign labor, and because which basically suppresses wages for Canadians, and Canadians don't want to. The standards have been lowered so much that Canadians don't want to do the jobs, and then the businesses demand, well, we can't get anybody to work. It's a big scam. And we shall talk about that. I definitely need some more caffeine. Hold on. Because I can't talk and stuff. That ought to kick my brain into gear. Excellent. And then we got the last tab, which is just a bunch of bullshit put together that you guys sent in. Just a bunch of junk. No, it's a bunch of fun stuff. And yeah, there's lots of stuff from you guys, audience requests. So it's there's some stuff we can't watch until we do the premium stream. But yeah, a bunch of fun stuff. And we'll go through all of this. And that's how we end off the evening on a lighter note. Well, we better get back up to the top. Oh, there we go. All right. And then while I take a quick look at the chat, we will watch the Fences and Goats channel. And doesn't seem to be much happening in the chat. In fact, it's pretty light in here. The audience is pretty light in here tonight so far. Let's see. Spambot got the second like. So let's see. We went quadruple for the first. So we'll go triple good karma for the second like. Congratulations, sir. All right. Spambot says, who had first? And that was Turtles. Turtles had first. Too slow, my friend. Too slow. So let's get into what's happening in Canada. So the Liberal government of Canada has continuously, well, it's been a decade-long journey to completely gut and destroy Canada from the Liberal Party of Canada, which is no longer the Liberal Party of Canada. It's really the radical leftist progressive party of Canada, the authoritarian radical leftist progressive party of Canada. And everything they touch turns to garbage, apparently. And this is not stopping. This has not ended. Who would have guessed that after, the better part of a decade of just ruining the country in a fourth term, they do the exact same thing. It's the last thing you'd expect for them to continue doing the only thing they know how to do, no matter who's leading it. I think it's an ideological problem for them. So we have this labor dispute in Canada, Air Canada. This is a major disruption. It's a strike. Let's quickly, well, here they are here. Unpaid work won't fly. Unpaid equals unfair. After months of stalled negotiations, 10,000 Air Canada flight attendants walked off the job early Saturday morning. The federal government stepped in hours later to order binding arbitration, forcing an end to the strike. Or so it thought. So, federal government forcing the workers back into arbitration to force them back to work. The union representing Air Canada flight attendants said Sunday it would defy the back to work order and remain on strike. So government intervention not making the unions happy, not making the flight attendants happy, and they're saying no. Now, we're going to get into this in more detail in a second, but first I want to just touch on the fact that this could affect the Liberals in a very negative way in the next election, and I'm going to show you why. So in the 2021 election, the NDP had, and that is for those not in Canada, that is the furthest left. I mean, it's kind of, the Liberal Party, NDP, they're kind of the same thing, really, at this point, but they're supposed to be the working class party, definitely the union party. But in the last election, 2021, but in the election prior to the last election in 2021, they had 16% of the vote, which is kind of a standard number for the NDP. In the last election, 2025, this year, they had 6.3% of the vote. So a lot of their vote went to the Liberal Party of Canada. And a lot of that was just to prevent the Conservatives from winning, because the Conservatives had their best showing in about 40 years with 41.3% of the vote. That's how the Liberals won. It was the collapse of the NDP. Now, there's going to be a lot of NDPers seeing the Carney government forcing the workers back, who are going to, I think, reconsider their support for the Liberal Party. And if you see the NDP get back up to, even like 12, 13, 14%, Liberals won't win next time. If the Conservatives can keep and build on their support, the Liberals won't win. So that will make a Conservative, probably, minority government, maybe majority. So this is a big deal. This is actually a really big screw up for Carney. Now let's get into this a little. So from David Coletto here, the Carney government may have single-handedly started a period of intense labor strife with today's decision. My research clearly shows that workers are incredibly insecure. Yes, after a decade of Liberal government, of the radical, progressive, incompetent Liberal Party, yes, the cost of living, housing costs, precarious work, macroeconomic instability, and AI have created a toxic cocktail. Yes, and let's not forget about AI is going to be erasing a lot of white-collar jobs. The unions will want to demonstrate their value in protecting their members. He was elected to protect people, secure them, and provide more certainty. Today could send the opposite signal. Well, it's not just this, though, is it? It's not just this. I mean, you've got the tariff thing, which is also a big deal. It's not only been a disaster. We've got much worse tariffs now from the States than when he took office and when he got elected. We have much worse tariffs now from the United States than when he started the negotiations, if that's what's happening. But we've also got massive new tariffs from China as well. That's devastating Canadian agriculture. So it's just across the board. It's not looking good, not to mention the massive deficit he's going to be running up. We don't have a budget. He should have kept everybody working over the summer to form to get a budget together. I mean, again, there's more instability. Nobody really knows what's happening. This government has not been successful so far. In fact, it's been a disaster. Mark Nixon posted this: Air Canada, everyone back to work at 2 p.m. Flight attendants, go F yourself. 10,500 workers just defied the Liberals' mandate. This isn't just a strike. This is the beginning of a movement. Liberals are in big trouble. Ryan Garrettson posted this. Almost 100% of them voted NDP or Liberal. Well, most of them voted Liberal, right? NDP only got just over 6% of the vote. This is the first time they have ever stood up against a government mandate, because that's what this was. This was a get back to work mandate. Little do they understand that this is exactly what the Freedom Convoy was about. Government mandates and overreach. Do they get it now? No, they will never get it. Of course, it's been programmed into them that the Freedom Convoy was all evil, far right or something, funded by shadowy far right figures in the United States or Putin or something like that. Something scary. Oh, scary and evil. No, they won't. But this might affect the way that they vote. Not that they're going to vote conservative. Oh, no. But they might take their votes back to the NDP again, because the NDP is going to make a lot of noise about this. Mark Nixon. Mark Carney thought he could use mandates to crush workers. Oh, no, we already saw that. Hold on. Mark Nixon again. Congratulations, candidate. You voted for Liberals. You got the worst inflation in 40 years. You got unaffordable housing, and now you're not even allowed to strike for fair wages. Enjoy the ride. Well, they didn't have a lot of sympathy for the truckers, did they? For the Freedom Convoy, for the people who disagreed with them. They sure didn't, but now they're finding out. Actually, this stuff can affect you. Right? So when you see other people that you don't like, who are saying we don't like mandates, we don't like government overreach, they're saying that because it could affect you someday as well. Is that starting to clue in? I really doubt it very much. That's certainly not the way that Rosemary Barton's teleprompter is going to present it.
It's a pleasure to be with you here today on the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabeg people. After 8 months of negotiations and weeks of intensive mediation.
Hold on. Let's do that again.
It's a pleasure to be with you here today on the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabeg people.
Oh, stop doing that. It's meaningless. We all know it. Stop doing that. God. Anyway, let's continue.
After 8 months of negotiations and weeks of intensive mediation, Air Canada and the Canadian Union of Public Employees flight attendants were unable to reach a tentative agreement. The government firmly believes that the best deals are reached by the parties at the bargaining table, and we will never stop believing that. It's not easy, but when parties put in the hard work at the table, Canadians are better off as a result.
Winners.
In this instance, and despite resolution on a number of key items, this dispute will not be resolved quickly enough. And the impact of the work stoppage at Air Canada that began early this morning is already being felt by travelers. This is causing significant harm and has negative impacts on Canadians and the Canadian economy. It impedes the movement of passengers and critical cargo, such as pharmaceuticals, and it strands thousands of Canadians abroad, making it extremely costly and sometimes impossible to book new flights. Canadians have already sacrificed a lot in this uncertain economy, and this labor disruption is adding to their worries and financial burdens. As Minister of Labour, I have exercised my authorities under Section 107 of the Canadian Labour Code to direct the Canada Industrial Relations Board to order the parties to resume and continue their operations and duties in order to secure industrial peace and protect the interests of Canada, Canadians, and the economy.
So, what are they complaining about? The government's made it clear, right? They have to go back. They're putting the boot on their face. That's good. They liked it when they were putting the boot down on somebody else's face. They thought that the government putting its boot on somebody's face was a good thing. But now they don't. Again, I think this might actually change a few minds. Not that they're going to become conservatives, but they are going to take their vote from the Liberals and take it to the NDP, which will be a good thing for Canada because it will give the Conservatives a chance to take power. And then normal, sane things can happen. CUPE national president seen ripping up the back-to-work order by the Liberals. Let's check this out. those people all clapping, all voted for him. They all voted for it. They all voted for it. Turns out elections do have consequences after all. Let's take a look. Now, I think there's a lot of fault on the government side. There's always, I'm not opposed to the unions I think they should be able to strike. Of course, unions are always a bit irrational, but I'm not saying that they don't have a point. I think that they do, actually. And I certainly think they have a right to strike. I don't want to put the boot down on anybody's face, right? Because I'm not a liberal. But really this was, well, hold on a second. Let me go back here for a second. So it really comes down to this. Workers are incredibly insecure. Cost of living, housing costs, precarious work, macroeconomic instability, interest rates. A terrible environment has been created by the liberal government, who most of these people probably voted for, by the way. But they've created a terrible environment for Canadians, a terrible economic environment. It is harder and harder for people to get by. Right? So the government has to take a lot of blame for this, because when people, airline workers, for instance, can't afford to live anymore, what are they going to do? Well, they've got a union. They're going to try and get more money. I'm sure the union is making I haven't gone into detail on the union's requests. I'm sure there's probably some unreasonable things from there as well. But a lot of this could be cleared up just simply by having a good economy and keeping inflation down, and people being able to actually live on the money that they earn. And a big problem is just how expensive it is to run an airline in Canada. Bad federal policy helps increase airfare in Canada. Really, I put the blame of this on the government. For starters, taxes and fees imposed by governments and airports comprise a large portion, 25 to 35% of airfare costs in Canada. 25 to 35%. Okay, so what that does is, that's huge. What that does is it makes it more expensive to fly, obviously, which means less people fly, and that means that it's harder to make a profit. And which means there's less money to increase wages for the workers. I put this, 98. In fact, I put this 100% at the feet of the government. It's their fault. These are the sorts of things that happen when you create just an awful environment, and when you ruin the economy of a country, right? When you have inflation, when you have high interest rates, right? When you have, inflation in everything. I mean, cost of, cost of housing, cost of food, just everything, because of bad policy. You're going to get more and more of this, because, again, what do? You can't live on your wages anymore. What do you do? Well, you're in a union. Union's going to go on strike. That's the only thing they can do. So I guess you do get what you vote for, though, don't you? I guess you do. All right. Let's get to the chat. All right. What are you guys saying? Radio streamer, how you doing? Says, hello, fellow degenerate basket of deplorables, orange Hitler following countrymen and women. How you doing? Rosie, how are you? Running late on everything. Oh, that's a bummer. Let's see. What else we got? Turtle says, y'all, it's a mad, mad, mad world. It is, and getting madder. Radio streamer says, I don't get this. Gumball rally rips off mirror. What's behind me does not matter. I don't get the reference. It's a reference to something. You guys will have to fill me in. Streamer says, sorry, thought it was a favorite movie quote moment. No, who told you that? I didn't say that. I didn't say anything about that. Tony Camisso. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Says Canadian government owns 6% in Air Canada shares. And is there an I think some small indirect ownership from Brookfield too, not directly but indirect, but small. I'm not sure it's particularly significant, but that does exist as well. Turtle says it didn't mean you, radio. I'm retarded. So why are you saying that you're retarded? I don't get it. I don't understand what's happening in the chat tonight. I don't know what's happening. You seem fine. You didn't seem at all retarded to me so far. So I don't know. Let's see. Radio Streamer says, I mean, I'm probably on the spectrum. Yes, definitely radio streamers on the spectrum. For sure. For sure. Spambot, favorite movie dialogue for me? Well, I don't know. You have to put it up. Let's see if I can do an ad read. What's going on with that? Don't know. Hold on. I think something's coming up. Let's see. No, it's not letting me do an ad read. Well, that's weird. Why won't it let me do that? Hold on. Let me try something else again here. There we go. All right. Which one should I do? I just do these for fun. They are all 7 cents for the ad read. So I don't know. Gundry MD. So it says, please do not change script. So I can't throw in any of my anti-communist stuff, which I usually slip into the ad reads. But, I want to do something new. Gundry MD, let's check it out. Are you ready, people? Don't eat breakfast until you learn about caloric bypass. Your breakfast is setting you up for the entire day to either gain weight or lose it. The term breakfast literally means to break your fast before you started the night before. About 4 hours after you eat dinner, your body switches from nutrients we get from food. About 4 hours after you eat dinner, your body switches from the nutrients we get from food to the stored glycogen we have in our bodies. That's stored glycogen. Once glycogen stores are depleted, typically after 8 to 12 hours of fasting, the body shifts to burning fat for enemy. The body shifts to burning fat for enemy. For energy. What the hell is wrong with me? I'm not sticking to the script. Damn it. To burning fat for energy. Well, this is interesting, though. So that's 8 to 12 hours of fasting. The body shifts to burning fat for energy. This is something I need to pay attention to. Fatty acids are released from fat stores where they are converted into ketone bodies through a process called ketogenesis. Then when you eat breakfast in the morning, the body starts the cycle again. This is where the caloric bypass comes into play. Well, this is what I've been wondering. Dr. Gundry, a heart surgeon in California, learned that if you break your nightly fast with something called MCTs, or medium chain triglycerides, MCTs, you can actually keep burning fat throughout the day and use it for energy. But there are specific types of foods that contain these MCTs. Using this breakfast breakthrough, he was able to lose 70 pounds just through diet, and he did this in his 60s. Scan the QR code and click the link in chat to watch Dr. Gundry's eye-opening presentation. It could change the way you think about fruit forever. So that was an interesting one. It sounds very interesting. I'm going to check it out myself. But the thing about that, I've never obviously read that script before, but it kept cutting like there'd be a paragraph and then it would stop and then it would cut down to 2 lines and then continue the same sentence. So that was tripping me up. So I got to be careful for that one. That was the hardest 7 cents I have ever earned. I'm telling you right now. That was a tough one, but great product, though. Great product. And it will change the way you think about fruit forever. All right. Now, what are you guys saying? Let's see. Spambot fodder. I guess this is a movie dialogue because that's what we do now. We're now starting now, right now, forever. We're now just a movie dialogue quote channel. This is what we're doing forever now. Did you bring a horse for me? It looks like we are shy one horse. No, you brought too many. I don't know. Rosie says, isn't the pain caused by a strike a big part of why they strike? Yes, that's why. Right now, it is like I understand why the government wants to do it. People are going to get really, really pissed off. I mean, Princess Baloney's supposed to be flying back on like the 26th on Air Canada. So, this could be a problem. But at the same time, though, I do think you should have a right to strike, right? So I'm kind of against the government boot on anybody's face, to be honest. Let's see. All right. Rogue Thought says, glycogen. All that delicious glycogen. It will change the way you think about fruit forever. Let's see. Turtle says 7 cents for the digestive win, 10 out of 10. Thank you so much. Once Upon a Time in the West. Spambot says, Once Upon a Time in the West. Yes, I did read it. Spambot says, Charles Bronson and toning, you brought too many, is the preamble to the starting gunfight. Is that the one where he shows up at the train station? Like out in the middle of nowhere, and it's like Peter Fonda is the bad guy? Is that the one we're talking about? I think that's the one we're talking about. All right. So now what are we doing? Well, I guess we'll just get on to the next thing. It's not going to be a long one tonight, guys. Not going to be a long one. And I think we're not going to do the premium stream tomorrow. We've already done all the premium hours that I need to do for the month. We've already done them. So I think we'll probably skip tomorrow and then just do it the next Monday. Because I wasn't able to get much done on the weekend, and I want to be able to focus on doing clips tomorrow. So we have seen this person before. Where have we seen this person before? Hold on. Oh, yeah.
The age of men is over. The time of the orc has come.
We've seen this person before, this delicate flower, this dainty lass. I tried to find the other videos. I couldn't find them, but we've seen this person before. I'm starting to think now that this is parody. I always thought it was serious because it was just too, I don't know, frightening to not be real. But I'm starting to think this is parody at this point because it's so ridiculous. Just your typical liberal woman, Proud Elephant says, well, let's check it out. Now, I don't know whether this is real or not. You guys can tell me what you think. Is this parody or is this like a true dingbat?
I am a beautiful black princess, and nobody can convince me otherwise. I am a beautiful black princess. I am a beautiful black...
Now, this could be parody. It could be... Hold on one second. Hold on.
Shall not pass!
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
I don't know, Sarge. That's what we're trying to figure out. Right? So this could be parody. This could be somebody who's just mentally disabled. Right? Because we know that the gender cult loves to prey on those people on the spectrum, people with developmental issues. So it could be, I'm not sure which it is. I mean, I don't think anybody could actually act this well, right? So let's watch it again.
Black princess. And nobody can convince me otherwise. I am a beautiful black princess. I am a beautiful black...
So I don't know. Again, I didn't have that much time before this stream to try and find out, because we've seen videos of this person before, being really threatening anybody that would try and stop them from going into a women's bathroom. That is not what you want to see in the women's bathroom. I don't care I don't care how woke you are, how woke of a woman you are. You don't want that walking in. You sure don't. That's terrifying. But yeah, I couldn't find anything. If you guys can find any links to previous videos of this person, and then we can compare and decide, is it real or fake? I don't know. Right? I don't know. I don't know if it's
a total fabrication.
Or
you're right. It's fact.
I don't know which one it is. Let's see. Subtitle text lies. It's not really a beautiful woman. You're right. You're right. Spambot says the lines of Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket could have a full soundboard of just him and Joker. Yep. So I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore. I mean, maybe. One more time.
Black princess. And nobody can convince me otherwise. I am a beautiful black princess.
So is it like a Bubbles thing? You know, because the guy who plays Bubbles is pretty convincing, Trailer Park Boys. Is it like that? Is he doing that? I kind of feel like it's real. I'm not sure. Let's see. I wanted to show you this woke mind virus. So here's James Lindsay. So some people like him, some people don't like him. I mean, I don't agree with everything he says, but I think he makes some really good points. I think he's very well read about leftism and wokeism. Says, why do communists always glorify criminals? Well, let's take a look here, because it is definitely something that they do. And we see that in modern culture. It's part of the, the cultural revolution in the West. And all leftists seem to think first of the criminals. And I ask, who will think of the children? Well, not the leftists, unless they're going to try and do, gender medical experiments on them. But let's see James Lindsay here. Let's see what he has to say.
Hey guys, it's James Lindsay again. You guys are all asking, I hear it all the time, do you understand why communists venerate criminals, why they glorify criminals, why they're always glazing people like George Floyd, Luigi Mangione, Breonna Taylor, say your name, and whatever else? They're always criminals. Why? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. Let's just break down.
We saw this in Cincinnati as well. And where you have now community leaders demanding that the guy who got attacked by that mob, the white guy who got attacked, now be charged with felonies for inciting felonies. It's almost like an ironclad rule now that, again, they just are always trying to, it's an ironclad rule that they will support whoever is destroying rule of law.
On a couple. There's a really big one that I want you to understand, though. Of course, number one, it gets criminals out in the streets. Guess what that means? When you have criminals out in the streets, you have destabilization. Destabilized communities can have a revolution. You want problems so that the state can step in and solve them. Number two, it erodes the rule of law. They want to make sure that the rule of law doesn't mean the rule of law for everybody. So they, push criminals and try to make it look like, there's extenuating circumstances for certain marginalized groups or whatever else. But these aren't the big reasons. The big reason, actually, that communists venerate criminals is very simple. It's because they're attacking the system. When you venerate a criminal, when you make a hero out of a criminal, when you're glazing someone like Luigi Mangione, who's a murderer, or George Floyd, who's a drug dealer, what you are doing is making people question the system that considers them a criminal. This is how communists think. It's always, how do we attack the system so that we can get people to hate the system so that they'll tear down the system, which is mean to have a revolution. And it's never the issue, guys. The issue is never the issue. It's always the revolution. Okay, so
yes, it's always the revolution. Issue is never the issue. It's always the revolution. And you know what? They don't need, the average leftist out at the protesting whatever. They don't need to understand what's happening. Yes, the academics know what they're doing. The politicians know what they're doing. The activists know what they're doing. But the useful idiots, they don't need to. They've just created this atmosphere, this political atmosphere for them in this bubble whereby they just have to support whatever feels progressive, whatever feels like it's not right wing. It just feels like it's progressive. They don't have to think about it. They can change their mind. They're just waiting for orders, essentially, right? It's just essentially political fashion, ultimately, right? They don't want to be seen as unfashionable. They'll get called names. So the useful idiots, they don't need to know. They just need to know what feels like it's progressive, what they call progressive. And ultimately, that is helping towards that is building the instability that the people controlling them want. The academics, the politicians, the activists, right? They are serving that purpose, even if they don't really know what they're doing. And let's continue.
These criminals because it makes people question the system that makes them criminals. The logic is, if we had a different system, we wouldn't consider those people criminals, would we? If we had a different system, there wouldn't be criminals, maybe. So they glaze criminals so that people will question the system that criminalizes them. That's the whole game. And the reason they do that is because what they want is a system like they had in Soviet Union, where the going rule was, you show me the man and I will find you the crime. Okay, so they want to take a fair system and they want to replace it with an unfair system that they control. And that lines up with everything else about their marginalized groups and everything else. So the big reason that they venerate criminals, that they glorify criminals, is so that they can get people to blame the system for failing the criminals and want to have a revolution to change the system.
Well, I mean, that Mangione, the guy who shot the pharmaceutical executive, was a perfect example of that. Immediately, it was not his fault. It was the pharmaceutical companies. They were to blame. And it wasn't subtle, right? This was overt. This was the overt message they were putting out, right? It wasn't the criminals. The criminal wasn't to blame. The assassin wasn't to blame. It was the pharmaceutical companies that were to blame. So I think that James Lindsay does understand these issues very well. Again, I don't agree with everything he says, just like I don't agree with everything anybody says, right? There's nobody that I can think of or you can think of that I'm going to agree with everything they say, because I'm a human being, right? And we just don't. But I thought that was worth hearing. And let's just stay on here for a second when we go to the chat. Rogue Thought says, before the revolution, the rules are different than after the revolution. Yes, exactly. And the revolutionaries find out the hard way, because they're no longer needed. Once you've got the revolution, you don't need revolutionaries anymore. Turtle says, Cloward Piven strategy. Yep. Rosie says, well, you know what? Hold on a second. Oh, hold on. Rosie says,
frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
I had that one in the soundboard already, Rosie. Ready to go. Let's see. All right. Rogue Thought says it's about creating an atmosphere of chaos and blaming it on the current system. Yes. Yeah, that's the Cloward Piven strategy. Yeah. And this is another great, this is what I'm talking about here, right? Black community leaders speak out on viral brawl, where a mob beat up a couple of white people, a white man and a white woman. And it was a mob, and it was a brutal beating.
6 individuals were charged with aggravated assault, which is a felony. The white guy incited or urged 6 other people to commit a felony.
The method by which this situation has been handled raises serious questions as to whether there's bias involved in the investigation. It also brings into question the possibility of a lack of integrity and whether there's something else to hide.
6 individuals were charged.
Yeah, it really brings it into question. I mean, it's almost as if you can't just try and beat people to death in the streets, that mobs can't just beat people to death in the streets because they're offended or something, or they're pretending that they did something to offend them after the fact. I mean, boy, what a system. But this is what James Lindsay is talking about here, right? And they're they are this is victim blaming 101. I mean, it couldn't be any more victim blaming than this victim blaming right here. I mean, literally turning the tables here. It's turning it around. Like, no, it was the guy who was beaten up by a mob, the man and the woman who were beaten up by a mob. It's their fault. So this is what we're calling these days race communism. Race communism. And nobody wants to live in a world like this. Or no sane person wants to live in a world like this. All right, we've already been there. Let's go here. Rogue Thought says this mentality would allow them to murder him. Yes, 100%. And they'd be fine with it. They would be completely fine with it. Again, scary. You don't want to live in that. I think Scott Adams had some sort of solution. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what Scott Adams said. But yeah. Jonathan K posted this. So he's responding to this. So this is around the unmarked graves hoax in Canada, where there's the claims that there's all these hundreds of unmarked graves of children at the former residential schools that were supposedly discovered by ground penetrating radar. Now, no remains have been found anywhere. In the one dig that I know of that they've done, they just found rocks, right? So it's all based on stories and, tales, essentially, but there's no evidence of anything. In Kamloops, where the Indian band was given $12 million to do an archaeological dig to find out the truth, they didn't, and the money just disappeared. So obviously, there's a big resistance to actually doing digs because everybody knows there's nothing there. This was just a giant hoax, a media-perpetrated hoax, or you could say deception, perpetrated by the media and the government, and, a few activists. Alana Kelly, who works for CBC News, additional unmarked children's graves have been found at former residential school in Sechelt. 41 more unmarked graves have been identified by archaeologists, bringing the total to 81. No, none have been found. This is ground-penetrating radar. It means nothing. It does not tell you that there are children's graves. The fact that no digs are happening tells you that they all know they're not there. But it's quite gruesome. But this is leverage, right? Don't want to lose the leverage. It means money from the government. April 17th, 2025. On April 16th, during a live broadcast, this is a correction issued by the CBC after Rosemary Barton lied on air about there being physical evidence of unmarked graves of children. On April 16th, during a live broadcast following the French language federal election leaders debate on CBC News Network, chief political correspondent Rosemary Barton said, quote, "Yes, there have been remains of Indigenous children found in various places across the country," unquote. As CBC News has reported on multiple occasions, what several Indigenous communities across Canada have discovered on the sites of some former residential schools are potential burial sites or unmarked graves. This is because there's no evidence that they are burial sites or unmarked graves other than ground-penetrating radar, which does not say that. It just says there's something. Now, If you use ground penetrating radar anywhere, there's going to be things in the ground. So Jonathan Kay responds, your own employer, CBC, has explicitly said no graves have been found at any of the locations identified with GPR, ground penetrating radar. It's incredible that you can spread blatant misinformation like this and remain employed as a CBC journalist. No, they have to do this to remain employed as a CBC journalist. If they told the truth, they would be fired. Look at Travis Donraj, right, who's suing the CBC for their bias. They didn't allow him. He's suing them because they wouldn't allow him to tell the truth. No, you have to lie. That's the whole point. Right? To work at the CBC, you have to lie. You have to push the approved narrative, not the truth. Let's see. Well, here's Jonathan Kay again. Here's a CBC reporter claiming that graves have been found. Alana Kelly. All right, so we've already seen that one. Apparently that post is no longer available, though. It's been deleted. Obvious reasons, I'm sure. But that extra little bit of damage that he did, remains, I'm sure. Ryan Garrettson, the amount of propaganda our media pushes on Canadians is insane. Wake up and understand what they are doing on a daily basis is no different what China and North Korea does to their citizens. All right, actually, this is a separate one. I think we'll get back to that one. All right. All right, so this is the state of the media in Canada, right? And actually, hold on one sec, because I forgot to bring up one tab. I'll be right back. Hold on. Because I want to continue with that story. Because we don't have a ton of stuff tonight. We're not going to be going that long, so. All right, let me bring this one up. And, okay. So, from Francis Widowson, this mass grave deception must stop. It is being fabricated by Michaela Champagne and Terrence Clark, a University of Saskatchewan professor. In this clip, Clark and another activist archaeologist make Champagne cry by implying that a GPR, that's ground penetrating radar anomaly, is a child lying on its side. This is so grotesque. That ground penetrating radar cannot tell you that.
The color pattern, you can almost imagine a child lying on its side in that pit.
You could almost imagine a child on its side lying in that pit. Thing is, these people all know that what they're looking at does not tell them any of this. Does not tell them any of this. It's actually, I would say, almost depraved, the manipulation, the cynical manipulation. Truly, I mean, there's something wrong with these people. Here, the BC legislature, Canadian flag is flying at half-mast until sunset on Sunday, August 17th, to honor the Shishal Nation and the survivors, families, and communities impacted by trauma and loss. The former Seashell residential school. Our thoughts are with those mourning and remembering. But there are no bodies. Let's see. The GPR, Coast Reporter, 41 additional unmarked graves found at former residential school site in Seashell. That's just not true. That's just a lie, right? So he's taken a quote here from the article. The GPR scans were conducted in areas identified through interviews with survivors, many of whom shared accounts of children being led into the forest by staff and never returning. Jonathan, and this is the basis for all of this stuff, by the way. It's just stories, right? It's just stories. There's no actual evidence of any of this actually happening or any parents reporting their children not returning from these things. So this isn't evidence. Jonathan Kay, so these children are mass murder victims and this is a crime scene, right? So obviously the ground is being dug up as we speak and forensic teams are analyzing the soil and identifying the victims, yes? No, No, because everybody knows it's not real. It's just leverage to get money out of the government. I know it sounds obscene. It is. Jim McMurtry says, Chief tells of children taken by staff into nearby forests at night and not returning. Chief tells whopper of a lie and media print it. Yeah, they will just print anything. They're really, again, they are complicit in the hoax in the first place, and they're not going to stop. Again here, global news. BC, First Nation in BC says 41 more graves found by penetrating radar at school set. So just this headline, like, okay, you can't, ground penetrating radar cannot tell you this. It cannot tell you that there's graves. It doesn't do that. It can't do that. It's not possible for it to do it. But you see, when I talk about complicity, this is what I'm talking about. Amy Eileen Ham says, we are surrounded by lies. It feels like living by lies has become a Canadian value. Yes. It feels like Canadians in general, like, have one of the most like distorted and warped views of the world, themselves, their own country, and the world of anywhere. I mean, we are really an indoctrinated, propagandized society to a level that I think would be hard to understand in the United States, which has plenty of indoctrination and propaganda. But the levels in Canada, I think, would be hard for other people to understand in other countries. Quote, some denialists are doing this as a new form of anti-Indigenous racism, Sean Carlton says. This is from Francis Widdowson. Quote, the Tom Flanagans and the Francis Widdowsons of the world have been pushing anti-Indigenous racism through a kind of pseudo-academia for decades, and denialism is just their new project. So this is what they do when you say, but where are the bodies? Where are the digs? Why aren't you doing the digs? This is the attack. They need it to be true. They need people to believe it's true. So it's just the same attacks over and over again. Guess what? If you say, well, we do need some evidence, that's racism. I mean, none of this is new or surprising, right? This is all very typical. Let's see. The CFJC today from Francis Widdowson again reports that this band received another $12.5 million for a healing center pursued after anomalies believed to be the unmarked burials of children were identified. Why no questions about the previous $12.1 million? Is it due to family ties? Well, this is the Kamloops, so the Kamloops residential school, where they did receive $12 million already to do a dig, and nothing happened and the money disappeared. Let's see. Just in time for Canada's first ever National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, another shipment of my T-shirts has arrived. I'm honoring my dad, blah, blah, blah. All right. But if you want to know, why this is, it's about money. At the end of the day, it's about money. So that's now $24 million. $24 million. You want to know what it's about? Ultimately, it's about money. It's about leverage and money. Let's see. Francis Widdowson. In discussing Indigenous genocide, R.A. Baloney, the former NDP MP for North Island Powell River, states the following. Well, let's hear it ourselves here. So this is NDP. So it's, as far left loony as you get in Canada.
And I also just want to say one of my personal pet peeves is that they keep referencing Darren as my husband, and he is, and reference away. You're allowed to do that. But in this context, what makes me frustrated is they never say former Rachel Baloney MP's spouse, and also, here's the important part, residential school survivor. Where is that? So I've also known that on the My Campbell River Now article, is that they don't say who he is. Yes, he's the chief of Homolko. Yes, he's my husband. I think everybody knows that. And if they don't, I'll announce it to the moon. But remember, people, when this man is standing in front of people talking about why he doesn't like somebody who doesn't believe in the impacts of residential school that are genocidal, which is what it was. And I am so frustrated also, by the way, how many people think that the only way to prove that it was a genocide is to prove that there were children's bodies outside of schools. Well, if you go to the archives in Canada, you can read how many kids died, how many kids left the residential schools, and they never found them again. We don't know where their bodies are because they were rushing trying to get home. But those people lost them. And then when they were never found again, they couldn't do anything about it. Let's talk about genocide. Genocide is also when your kids are taken away from you and you can't fight to get them home. When you're told you can't hire a lawyer. Genocide. When you're given blankets that are toxic and you die from them, where whole communities went from big communities down to 67 people. Genocide. That's what genocide looks like. So please, people, if you're going to be out there saying what you want to say, guess what? Free country, you get to do it. But please take a moment to just have a little bit of curiosity and understand that this isn't about digging up the children outside of those schools that I 100% believe are there.
This isn't about digging up the graves of those children that I 100% believe are there. So this is what you're dealing with, right? They throw out a million things, right? And then just reveal, right? So all of the other things she said are just invalid now because she said she doesn't care if about evidence. She doesn't need evidence. She will just believe anything, right? As long as it is in her interest, in her political interest, or just her ideological interest, right? She doesn't care, right? I'm sure she probably does know that there's nothing there, but again, it's leverage that I 100% believe are there. It's not about it's not about doing a forensic investigation. I'm just saying they're there, and that's good enough for me. Like, you can't run a country this way, right? Where everybody is blackmailed and extorted over just stories. You can't run a country this way, right? You can't operate like that. It has to be based on reality. If your country is not reality based, you're going to have levels of dysfunction that will destroy your country. All right. Let's move on. Let's get back to here. Let's see. Let's see. What are you guys saying? Oh, we got a bunch of chat come in. Let's see. Where did I get off? Okay, I think we've got past the communist revolutionary stuff that we were dealing with. Story time with Uncle Kumaran says more lefty grifting Marxism 101. Yep, it is everywhere. Again, a friend of mine, like 5 years ago, was like, "Do you really believe there's all these communists everywhere?" And I'm like, "Yes, there are. They're obviously there. They're telling us." Rogue Thought says it's really not incredible anymore. It's a feature, but every once in a while, I'll just stop and go, "Wait a second, this isn't normal. These aren't normal ways for people to think." You got to stop every once in a while and smell the shite, I guess. Storytime says CBC is not allowed to tell the truth. Yes, their job is not to inform the public. It's to manipulate. That is their job. Their job is to just whatever the Liberal Party wants them to say, just say that. Because you remember, before the election, before Mark Carney getting rid of the consumer carbon tax, it was before the election, before Mark Carney getting rid of the consumer carbon tax, the world was going to burn and blah blah blah. climate science this, climate science that. And then when Mark Carney stole that from Pierre Poilievre and said, well, I'm going to bring that down because it's too divisive, it's actually really great. If you go back and watch what he said about it at the time, it was very insulting to Canadians. It was, yeah, it's really great and everything, but people don't understand it. Basically saying that Canadians are too stupid to get how great the consumer carbon tax is. So it was divisive. So he was going to get rid of it. And then it was perfectly fine. No talk about the world was going to burn and forest fires and all of that because Carney was doing it. Their job is not to tell the truth. It's to manipulate. It's not to inform. It's not to show both sides. Let people decide. It's to manipulate. Let's see. Xerxes says, oh yeah, how you doing, Xerxes? Been a while. Good to see you back in the chat. The Indigenous children's grave story probably concocted by crazy commies around a scary story campfire. Well, it was actually started by non-natives, actually. The woman who did the ground-penetrating radar, I believe. I don't want to get sued. I don't know if she started it, but that's where the whole story started, was with the ground-penetrating radar. And it was picked up by politicians, especially like Justin Trudeau, and the media, and presented as fact. In fact, it wasn't even originally a claim by the native band there in Kamloops. Now, of course, they've jumped onto it afterwards because it's very useful. But yeah, I mean that was a mass media deception, and we'll be dealing with that now for a long time, and at least until we can actually get some archaeological digs happening, right? Which is never going to happen for obvious reasons. Rogue Thought says, creating straw men is the leftist favorite hobby. They sure do love it. That's all they got. Because they don't have reality on their side. So that's what they do. Turtle says they keep natives racist. Well, they want to keep up that division, right? So that's part of the plan, to destabilizing a society, right? Keep everybody against each other and hating each other. Rogue Thought says, never can have enough victimhood. Christ, I'm tired of this. But it's all to a purpose. It's to a race communist purpose. Rosie says, does that make all of us Radio Baloney survivors? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I take no legal responsibility for your trauma. Let's see. Nevada, how you doing? Good to see you. Nevada got like number 8. Like number 8, I'm going to give 1.05 good karmas to. So that's 0.05 extra. Hey, that might be just enough. Let's see. Izzy, how you doing? Let's see. Like number 9, that's 1.04 good karmas. Hopefully that's enough. All right. I'm going to scan down to the bottom here. Rogue Thought says, I think most of them are commies and they don't even realize it. Only the zealots know their true intentions. Many of them are just useful idiots who don't really know that what they're doing is furthering actual communism, right? They don't know it. They just know that it feels progressive. That's the environment that's been built for them in their bubble, in their pink bubble. Xerxes says, is that Amish farmer's wife doing Playboy takes? Oh, there's a woman in this. Well, I thought it was just fences and goats, but you're right, actually. I don't know what's going on there. She seems nice, though. Seems really nice. Mickey, how you doing, Mickey? I'm here. Had to pick somebody up at YVR. What a zoo getting out of there. Yeah, traffic's not very fun. Turtle says, sharing good karma to all. It's a beautiful day. Well, people need it in these troubled times, don't they? That's what I'm here for. Radio Streamer says, I'm not greedy. Standard good karma every day is just fine with me. Excellent. See, that actually gains you non-radio baloney good karma on your own. I don't know how much, probably a lot. All right, let's move on. So, World Economic Forum has a new boss. So, from Liz Churchill, unelected psychopath and DEI supervillain Larry Fink has been promoted at the World Economic Forum. We forced people to change their behaviors. Since he was the head of BlackRock, and he was very into forcing, like Mark Carney. Oh, sorry. I got a frog in my throat. Hold on. We forced people to change their behaviors. Larry Fink, head of BlackRock, the globalists like to force people to do things. They see them as ants. This is Mark Carney, and if you read his book Values, he thinks exactly the same as Larry Fink. You are an ant in a giant ant colony. Canada is Mark Carney's, and I would say Larry Fink's net zero globalist laboratory now. You're just ants. For Mark Carney, the technocrat central banker, you are nothing more than a number on a spreadsheet. Let's hear Larry Fink here.
It's just, you have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition.
If you don't force behavior, whether it's gender or race, he's talking about humanity here. He's talking about humanity, forcing humanity to do what he wants.
Of your team, you're going to be impacted. And that's not recruiting, it is development, as Ken said.
How do you force change, though? I mean, Larry, BlackRock has really been in the forefront of the ESG movement within corporate governance and a real leader. And yet change is so slow. So what is, and Ken as well, how do you force change when it is so incremental and so gradual? How do you do something more radical? Have you thought about that? Has the board of American Express?
Yes, it's forcing it's forcing change in corporations, but that's also forcing change just among regular people as well, right? So, actually, let's go to the end here.
It has to be imbued in the culture of a firm. It has
diversity and inclusion.
Because it has to be imbued in the culture of a firm. It has to be talked about. It has to be shown. Behaviors across the entire firm in every region have to be similar. And every citizen of the firm has to understand what is acceptable behaviors and what are unacceptable behaviors.
What are acceptable behaviors and what are unacceptable behaviors? So he wants every company to have to enforce, his ESG vision, DEI. That means all the people in the companies. That means that their advertising, all of their policies, everything, right? What products they offer, even. I mean, this is not just affecting, the executives at whatever company. It's everybody. That's what he's trying to achieve here. It's ultimately trying to change everyone's behavior, like we see in Canada with Mark Carney with the EV mandate, trying to force every Canadian into a zero-emission vehicle, not even a hybrid, but a zero-emission vehicle, full electric vehicle by 2035. That's how these people think. They don't seem to think about the consequences. Carney certainly hasn't thought about practicalities and logistics around this, forcing everybody into a zero-emission vehicle, because simply it can't work in Canada. I mean, just the charging of them. Like, you wouldn't be able to charge all of the cars. Maybe part of it is that they're trying to force people out of cars and onto public transit. Which, by the way, if you're like a single mom in Edmonton and it's at 30 degrees below zero in March or January or February, and you're trying to get home, you probably would prefer to have a car than have to ride on the bus. But I guess maybe Larry Fink doesn't think so. He doesn't think that's quite right for her. Or Mark Carney doesn't think that's quite right for her. She's better off on the bus because of the planet or something. Larry Fink admits the quiet part out loud. This is from Camus. You have to force behavior. BlackRock CEO, WEF darling, and architect of the ESG regime, spells out the real agenda. Social engineering by corporate coercion. So, the World Economic Forum has named BlackRock's Larry Fink as its new chairman. So there you go. That's Klaus Schwab who penetrated the Trudeau cabinet. And maybe Trudeau himself. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, this is the guy who's taken over. And he's just every bit as evil. Every bit as much of a Bond villain as Klaus Schwab. Doesn't have the accent. I guess if he had the accent as well, then that would really put him over the top. But anyway, I think we can safely say evil. Evil. Nevada says, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Storytime says, evil freak. What? I didn't say it. I didn't say that. I didn't say it. Let's see. Let's see. Yes, I did, Spambot. Thank you very much. Let's see. Trudeau Survivor says, question, how do you force change more rapidly? Answers, scamdemic. I mean, my thoughts on that are that there was something that was cooked up in that Wuhan lab, and then it was seen immediately as a massive opportunity. In fact, The Great Reset, the book by Klaus Schwab, they did say it, right? Like, this is a great opportunity. It was seen as an awesome opportunity to change behaviors. Change behaviors, as that Larry Fink says, who's now running the WEF. Amazing Faces, how you doing? Makes a very good point here. Carney's worse than the turd. True, Gina. Big time. And hi, everyone. Yes, Carney is worse. He is worse. I think if anything, he's even more narcissistic than Trudeau, or megamaniacal, something like that. I can't remember the word, but I think he's even worse. Yes, I think he has more ability to inflict damage. Let's not forget, Trudeau was only working off the Carney blueprint, right? So he may have held back on some things. Now, Carney's got carte blanche now. He can just do whatever the hell he wants. It's not going to be good. Rogue Thought says, very democratic, an unelected tyrant dictating how every person should live their life. Disgusting. Yes, that's Larry Fink. But money speaks. Money talks. Xerxes says, speaking of the Amish, I'm sort of a Luddite wannabe, and I'm trading in my Mazda for a horse and buggy. Good for you. I hope that works out. Where do you charge the horse, though? That's my only question. Megalomaniac. Thank you very much, Amazing Faces. Megalomaniac. My brain is broken. Thank you. You saved me. Megalomaniacal. I used to be able to say that no problem. Is this what happens when you get old? You can't talk anymore? Rogue Thought says, just him being more intelligent, Mark Carney you're talking about, makes him more of a threat. Trudeau Survivor says, megalomaniacal describes someone exhibiting megalomania, a psychological condition characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance, delusions of grandeur, and a craving for power and control. That sounds exactly like Mark Carney. Also sounded like Trudeau as well. I think you nailed it there. Let's see. All right. Should we listen to Jordan Peterson explain why the WEF is a fascist organization? This was posted by Wide Awake Media. I want to hear what he has to say. Let's take a look.
It's a fascist organization. And fascism means to bind together, right? And the fascists were big into the idea that, and this is kind of what defines fascism, that media, corporations, government should all be working together as a unit to push forward whatever the interest happens to be, whatever the agenda happens to be. And the WEF is a place where exactly that happens, is that the elites of all the different power hierarchies meet and, well, conspire morally to improve the planet, despite the fact that they have no democratic standing. And as you said, no opposition and no journalistic coverage, and that it's a pay-to-play arrangement that's made Schwab and his cronies exceptionally rich, and that's really demented and twisted the world in unbelievably pathological ways. Net zero, that's a WF initiative. ESG, right? That stakeholder capitalism, that's all pouring out of the WEF. Every stupid idea you can possibly imagine the last 15 years has been promoted by the Davos crowd.
Yeah, I think that the goal is Chinese style, a Chinese style totalitarian government, which is essentially neo-fascism. You've got capitalism with Chinese characteristics, as they say, which is basically a very tight connection between corporate and the government. Every large company in China has a Communist Party office. They must have that by law. So it's everything for the state, right? It's collectivist. And I think that Western leftist leaders and a lot of corporate leaders look at that with envy. I think they look at the Chinese system with envy, right? They can just go, as long as they never step out of line with the government, they can just go on forever, right? They're a part of the government's power. So they're pretty much safe, right? And there's no dissent. The government's very happy because everybody's under total control. The corporate heads are happy because you don't have to worry about like unions and strikes and stuff. That's not happening. It's a totalitarian system. I think with the people that get together at the WEF and all agree with each other and nod and talk about how great censorship is and stakeholder capitalism and all of this, they look with lust at the Chinese system. And I think that is the goal. And are we not moving closer to that? Have we not seen a rise in authoritarianism among Western leftist governments? Have we not? Have we not seen a collusion between the corporate? We see Larry Fink, head of BlackRock, taking over the World Economic Forum. It sure seems like it to me. That seems like it sure looks a lot like that's the direction where things are heading. And that's what we simply have to avoid. Unless you like living under a totalitarian system with a boot on your face forever, which I don't think anybody watching this does. Let's see. And now you guys are just talking about cars. All right. Let's see. All right. Let's move on. What do we got next? So let's move on to the next tab. What are we, an hour and 24 minutes in already? Wow. So this is related. So Jordan Peterson has had a lot of health problems. So here's his daughter giving an update here. This was from August 13th. So 4 days ago. And she's saying, she says, "Hi guys, this is Michaela Peterson. Hi guys, Jordan Peterson is taking some time off of everything. He was diagnosed with CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, due to a genetic predisposition that causes the immune system to have an inability to identify and detoxify mold, bacteria in indoor air. The genetic predisposition is not that rare. It's in about 25% of people, but he has a severe version. So as you know, he's tried all kinds of things for his health, including an all-meat diet. She goes on to say that that had been very helpful, but it's not as helpful anymore. She says that this CIRS is what has been behind his multiple health issues and random severe allergies and severe food sensitivities over the years. He's really been suffering from this badly since 2017, and we just didn't know what it was called. Only eating meat helped keep the symptoms under control, but it hasn't been enough recently. So I certainly hope the best for him. I think he's an extremely important voice, and I don't think we should forget his courage. Going back 10 years, more than 10 years now, when yes, he was a very well-regarded, well-known, well-regarded psychologist worldwide, but he was just a guy, right? Like, he really put his entire career at risk. I'm sure he had no idea that he was going to end up actually doing very well out of it. How could he have known that when he was just a professor, right? So he put his money where his mouth was, right? He took, a leap. He took a courageous leap that almost all of his colleagues would not take, even ones that agreed with him. And I noticed that Pierre Poilievre had commented on this, praying for a swift recovery for my friend, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. The world needs his prodigious mind and solid principles now more than ever. Now, in a sane world, this wouldn't be at all controversial, obviously, right? But we live in the modern world. We live in the radical, progressive, liberal party Canada. So there is risk in this for him, actually. I mean, I would say that anybody who would be mad at him for offering his, concerns or his condolences to Jordan Peterson, or, expressing his concern and his hopes for a swift recovery for Jordan Peterson, would never vote sanely anyway, right? They're just going to vote for whoever's craziest, whoever's the most far left, I should say, or at least just far left. It's hard to tell who's the furthest left between the NDP and the Liberals these days, but one of them. And to me, this is such a really good sign that he goes out of his way, because this could be picked up by the media, and Pierre Poilievre comments on a controversial Jordan Peterson, far right Jordan Peterson, whatever they want to call him, whatever insane description of them they want to give. But this is a good thing. This is a very good thing. It puts my mind at ease. Aaron O'Toole wouldn't have done this. Andrew Scheer wouldn't have done this. This is good. He's being very forthright on immigration now. He seems to have just kind of thrown off the shackles and realized that, the media is just going to hate him anyway, right? There is literally no point. It seemed like he did understand that, and then he got maybe pulled back a little bit by his campaign manager into watering things down a little bit. I hope that he continues with what he's doing now and doesn't attempt to water it down again. It doesn't help. I think it just hurts. I think it just demoralizes his supporters. So continue with this. This is what we need. Just keep saying sane things. This is good. This is good. Keep doing it. Memes. So this isn't really a meme. This is just a cartoon. But in honor of Gary Larson's birthday, here is my favorite Far Side comic. Show me some of your favorite. That's from Danny Durrani. I remember this one, and yeah, it's great. Anatidaphobia, the fear that somewhere, somehow, a duck is watching you. There's a duck. Do you remember when these first came out? If you're old enough to remember when these books came out, and my mom and dad give me one of the Far Side books for Christmas or my birthday or something, and you just go through them. Of course, it's before the internet. And you just go through them and just laugh and laugh. Some of them seem a little dated at this point, but it really was great. Let's see. What else have we got here? Sing Hortons. You know what they call a 2 cream, 2 sugar coffee in Canada? Whatever that Indian language is now. The joke is, and it's called Sing Hortons, is that, and as far as I can tell, every single Tim Hortons in Canada is staffed entirely by a Sri Lankan village, as far as I can tell, or a Punjabi village, as far as I can tell. There's I haven't been to one, and in fact, I stopped going to them. I got to be honest, because now there's like flies in them all the time, which I mean that's not good. But yeah, like it's a straight like Lauren Southern put out a photo that the leftists got all mad at. She had a Tim Hortons coffee and said, "I love Indian food." It's yeah. It's a double, by the way. That's what it used to be called. All right, let's move on. I will not risk offending the left. The left is already offended, whether you would risk it or not. That's a classic. I like to keep bringing it back because, yeah, it's pointless. And getting back to this here, like just making a statement, a positive statement about Jordan Peterson, right? They're going to be offended anyway. You might as well just make the statement. He seems to have figured that out. They're always going to be offended. There's no point trying to placate them. They're just waiting for you to say literally anything. And if you don't say anything, they'll just pretend that you did. So there's just no point. All right, we already saw that one. What else we got? Let me get back to the chat for a minute. Maybe I can do another ad read. That'd be fun. Hold on one second. What do we got? All right, let's do this one. Let's do a classic. Let's go. Still haven't tried 1775 coffee? Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped. Only 1,000 units. I can't believe it's only 1,000. That's so exclusive. You're getting the bold dark roast that hits hard, the smooth medium roast, and the vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus. No crash, no communism. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. I'm glad because I hate mold. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. No, a frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions. She's probably some kind of dirty old commie. And a black 1775 tumbler. That's $170 worth of coffee and gear. Yours for only $99. My friends, that's less than $100. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble. And I know we've been doing that, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler alert, guess what? It is. Go to 1775coffee.com. That's 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Wouldn't it be sad if you went and you're all excited and they were all gone because you just did it too late? Man, that would suck. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something. I think we're talking about free speech here, folks, just like Rumble does. How about that? How about that? Special ad read just for you guys. All right. Rosie says 1778 out of 1775. Great commie hate. Well, thank you. And I believe that's the most you can get out of 1775. Let's see. Rogue Thought says, so Indians to Canada are the Mexicans to the U.S. It's just too many people all at once. And nobody asked us. Although I guess, they got their consent. The Liberals got their consent by people continuing to vote for them. So I guess that's it. Spambot says the kid pushing on the door marked pull to open on the school for geniuses. That was a classic. Let's see. Turtle says I would get my dad a yearly calendar every Christmas. He lives on Washington. So Far Side, yeah. It was so popular. Let's see. Spambot says my absolute favorites include the cow standing around smoking and yells car and all and they all go down on all fours. That was a good one. Remember the one too, the dinosaurs smoking, and it was like why the dinosaurs went extinct? They're all smoking cigarettes. All right, let me skip down. Trudeau Survivor says, my favorite Far Side was two old men. One man was resting under a tree with his eyes closed. The other man was holding a fish in front of the resting man's face. The resting man said, not tonight, Doris. Rogue Thought says, she can come test the integrity of my fence every day. Do you know what? It just, okay, now it's all clicked into place. She's a fence inspector. She's testing it. You're right. Okay. Radio Streamer says on my last ad read, 9.8 out of 10 needs more commie hate. Great read otherwise. I want another broken statue of Marx one day. Great read though. Well, thank you so much. I don't have any statues of Marx because I'm not a fucking commie. So I don't have statues of Marx lying around the house. But maybe one day I'll find one in a garage sale, some commie garage sale, and I'll film myself smashing it. Raider Streamer says, can I identify as a fence? You can identify as anything now. Anything. Let's see. Let's see. All right. Let us continue. So we didn't have many memes. So I wanted to get into this. So this is something that the dingbats, the useful idiots are doing. Sean Fitzgerald, actual justice warrior, posted this. People believing the red hands thing represents peace and a ceasefire is wild. They took a symbol from Islamic pogrom inspired by Nazi literature and got a bunch of lefties to do it. It's also a call back to one of the most infamous Second Intifada photos. I remember when they, right after October 7th, and they were out celebrating in the streets, like while the slaughter was still ongoing and the blood was still warm. And, the days after, seeing interviews, man on the street interviews, asking the useful idiots that had showed up, just the reflexive leftists who just go out to protest, whatever. These are the people who just put whatever flag in the, in their profile that is asked of them or demanded of them. And then being asked, like, well, what is the river to the sea? Like, what does that mean? They had no idea. And they're like, well, what river and what sea? And none of them knew, like, okay, like the Mediterranean and like the Jordan River. None of them knew this. They knew nothing. They proved they knew nothing about what was going on. And so do you think this guy or that guy knows what's going on here? What this is all about? Like, does that guy know? Does she know? How many of these people actually know what they're doing? What the symbolism actually means? Does this guy know? Does she know? Does that guy? I'm guessing probably very few of them do. All right. So I wanted to show you this. This is from the Times of Israel. And this is actually what it means. So I've checked it out. This is actually what it means. What the red hands on the ceasefire pins mean to many of us who love Israel. So this is a pro-Israel thing, but this is what it actually means. So it's a story about a lynching in Ramallah. Two Israelis, Yosef Avrahami and Vadim Norsich, had made a very wrong turn and would never turn back. They were swallowed by a lynch mob whole who beat them, stabbed them, gouged their eyes out, and disemboweled them as they lay on the floor of the Ramallah police station. When one of the Israeli men's phones rang and rang and rang, his wife, worried that she hadn't heard from him, his killer picked up the phone and said, "Your husband is dead." And then he went to a window and waved his hands, his bloody hands. So that's what it means. That's what it means, right? Which is not really surprising. If you, for instance, go to the Hamas Charter and see what's in there, and that it is just explicitly genocidal. Like they don't They don't want they don't want any political solution. They say it explicitly. Go read it yourself. I made a video about it. You can find it. Look at, Hamas Charter, Radio Baloney. I made a video where we go through it. You can see for yourself. It's just explicitly genocidal. They don't mince words. They want them all gone. And like permanently gone, right? So that's what these people are doing. That's what these people are supporting. They're supporting that. Right? This is not a call for peace, right? This is genocidal propaganda. Of course they don't want to know. The problem is there's no profit in it for them to ever investigate any of this themselves or do their own research. Told, if you just like look up something, right? Go to a newspaper, for instance. If you go to the wrong newspaper, that's doing your own research. Right. If you go to the right newspaper, the right source, then that's being informed. That's going like with the science and everything and the experts. If you go to the wrong newspaper, that's doing your own research. Or if you go to like, I don't know, government statistics or something, that's doing your own research, which is bad and wrong. Only idiots do that. So I think they're actively discouraged from finding out what they're actually supporting because they've all been convinced that curiosity is now the sign of an idiot or something, or a conspiracy theorist. So they're unlikely to find out they're unlikely to ever find out, to make an attempt to find out what they're actually doing, because for one thing, they've been told that's bad. Only bad people do that. And also, too, there's no profit in it for them because all of a sudden it could cause them to change their minds and then be at odds with the other people in the bubble that they exist with. And they don't want to get denounced and struggle sessioned by those around them. So, but there you go. There you go. So let's see. So the red hands thing, the river to the sea, all of this, I guess, the whole death to Canada, death to Israel, death to USA thing, that is pretty explicit. That's pretty self-explanatory, but either they agree with it or they just kind of go, well, they don't really mean it. They don't really mean it. They do mean it. They do mean it, by the way. They seriously mean it. Useful idiots is what I say. Useful idiots. In fact, I say this. Shut up, commie. Commie gets nothing. What a depressing world. Just people are so easily manipulated. Let's see. Kirk Lubomov says, I'm so sick of Canadian businesses complaining they can't find workers while our unemployment is growing and youth unemployment is at multi-decades high. Hire and train people. That's what all businesses have done forever. Well, they like the foreign temporary workers because they get subsidies. They get tax credits. They do. The training will be paid for by the government, if not just directly subsidizing their wages with taxpayer money. So that's why you keep hearing this. Even though unemployment is high in Canada and very high in some places, it's very high amongst young people, the kind of people that would work in resorts, for instance. But they don't want to hire them because they don't get all the goodies that come along with it. So they say, oh, we can't hire anybody. Yes, they can. They can. It's just Canada would have to kind of go back to what Canada used to be like. Kamloops, BC, home to highest unemployment rate in Canada. This Ontario resort can't find enough employees. Businesses say cuts to Canada's temporary foreign worker program are to blame. Economists and advocates say Canada's dependence on these workers is troubling and they should do more to make jobs attractive. Well, this is the thing, make the jobs more attractive. I mean, why not subsidies just for Canadians instead of temporary foreign workers? Well, temporary foreign workers are easier to control. They're not going to form unions. They're not going to ask for raises, right? Because they're worried they're going to get kicked out of the country. That's why. It's just easier that way. So, yeah, I'm kind of sick of it, too. What are people saying underneath here? Canada has thousands of unemployed people. Well, it's a lot more than thousands. It's funny when I see a business with a sign that says something like "Made in Canada," but all the workers are foreigners, and most, if not all, the products they sell are made in China. Exactly. All right. What they should really be doing is just creating a great business environment for Canada, and it takes the excuse away. So that companies can afford, like lowering taxes, for instance, and all of the very expensive regulations, so that they can actually afford to hire local. Because local is going to demand more. And I think it's even at the same wages. I mean, it's just that they prefer to hire the temporary foreign workers for the reasons I've outlined. All right, what do we got next? How about this? It just never ends. Judicial review granted to refugee despite story resembling nearly 200 other India claimants. So what's going on here? Rupa Subramania tells us a story about immigration fraud by Indians claiming asylum in Canada, all spinning the same sob story. One guy, Singh, they're mostly called Singh, claimed he fears persecution in India due to his active support of an independent Khalistan, a cause for which he said he's been advocating for since coming to Canada. And there's a little bit of a terroristy thing around that. Maybe that should be a warning to us in the first place. This is a separatist movement tied to the worst terrorist attack in Canadian history. In Canada, you can openly champion Khalistan without consequence to your immigration status, and the bad guys knows it. In fact, you can all just have the same story. It's lunacy. Everything is just dysfunction 24/7. All right. We're on to the last tab now. What are you guys saying? Then we'll get to the last tab. Let's see. Rosie says the Red Hands is sick. How depraved can we be? How do we cross the line into insanity? Why some and not others? It's a total capture. It's total media capture is what it is. Shall we make fart jokes to bring the mood back? Well, you know what? You might be reading my mind there, radio streamer. You might be reading my mind. I've got something for you coming up. Let's see. Rosie says, why is Richie ruining our fun chat with bad news of genocide? I thought it was a movie quote night. Next he will tell me to go frost myself. You can go fork yourself. That's what I'm saying. Let's see. Radio streamer says, read their religious text. They believe that a war on the Jews must occur before their God can come back. There's lots of crazy stuff in there, which I don't like. All right. Let's see. Trudeau Survivor says, I thought the red hand was from Castaway. Wilson, do you think maybe they're at like a screening of Castaway? Is that what they're doing? Maybe I got it all wrong. Hold on. Maybe I got it all wrong. They're just like, they're doing like one of those screenings. You know, they bring back the old movie and they do a screening of a movie. Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe I was too quick to judge. Radio Streamer says, oh, this is not the greatest joke here, Radio Streamer. I got to be honest with you. Knock, knock, poops there. Joe Biden. I gave you applause to be polite. Let's see. Xerxes says, Richie's stuck with worse than Drugina. He's man, but he's also a vagina. So a man vagina. Come vacation here in Texas, Richie. Maybe I will. I've only been to the airport there. The, where was it? Dallas, I think. I don't know, the big airport that everything goes through there. Let's see. Tennessee is cooler, radio streamer says. Okay. Turtle says, Washington is run by commies. They want to give out tickets to people putting up yard sale signs. Oh, yeah. They have to be involved in everything, part of everything. Let's see. Rogue Thought says Washington is a commie haven. This is everything I'm hearing about Washington State. Well, it's really just Seattle, though, isn't it? Right? Xerxes says, I may have to move to Wisconsin. Texas is too hot. Texas is very hot and humid, too, right? Trudeau Survivor says, does the gay persecution sob story no longer work? Well, Canada's just put in a program where you can claim to be gay and then you just automatically get in. Let's see. So that's not going to be abused. Steve Tollison, how you doing? Now, this is a testimonial about the good karma. Sometimes people put these up. Steve Tollison says, I've been living off my extra karma all week. Thanks, Radio Baloney. See, that's why I do this. That's why I do this, to hand out that free karma when people subscribe to the channel or they like the stream. You know, that's why I'm here. This is what I live for. This makes it all worthwhile to get these testimonials about how much good this Radio Baloney good karma is doing for people out there. It's a beautiful thing. Probably nature's greatest miracle. Let's see. What else do we got going on? It's the whole west of the state, Turtle says, that's commie. Washington State. Turtle says, gay unicorn furry to get a home loan in Washington. I don't even think that's a joke. I think that's 100% accurate. That's the sort of thing they would do. So what's going on here? Amiri King? Wait for it and thank me later. Okay. So what's happening here? Let's take a peek. So this young woman is apparently very, very woke. Let's take a
Even
look.
someone as white passing as me has received Indian racism online. Okay, Kumar. If her parents didn't immigrate here, she'd be sleeping in cow shit with no rights. The irony. Hi, Mom.
Hi.
I
So
got.
you're ready for Go ahead.
I got a racist comment. Do you want to hear it?
What is it?
If her parents did not immigrate here, she would be sleeping in cow shit with no rights. The irony.
You will be sleeping in what?
In cow shit with no rights. The irony.
Oh, okay.
Is that true?
How? What does that mean?
They're saying if I was still in India with you, we would be sleeping with cows in shit. But you didn't have cows in your house, right?
We did have cows in our house. So big deal.
I have to go.
Yeah.
Even
We did have cows in the house. I don't know if this is real. That was scripted or something. I don't know, but it's pretty funny. So Coney Island looks beautiful this time of year. Look at this.
I've never seen the water come.
My God, that's disgusting. This is breakdown of society stuff. This is the stuff that makes commies really happy because they know that their work is working. They know they're doing good work in wrecking society, bringing that communist revolution just closer and closer. That breakdown of society. They love to see it. The commies, they love it. Disgusting. This is just when this is what you're around all the time, like you do lose faith and you also lose pride in your own society, well, your own neighborhood and your own country as a whole. Your society, everything, right? You just think, just why would you be proud of it? What is there to be proud of, right? This is just, it's degradation is what it is, and degeneracy. Let's see. Liberal white woman says she'd rather go to prison than have kids. Well, how old is she? How old is this? She looks like, what, like 20 or something like that? Let's hear from her in like 20 years.
I would rather go to literal prison than be in the prison that is motherhood. I'm not fucking doing it. I don't care. Find me, charge me, put me in jail, give me a criminal record. I don't care. I'm not having any fucking kids. I would rather go to literal prison than be in the prison that is motherhood.
We're not going to put you in prison. We're just going to send you to Afghanistan. That's all. But, like, what happened where just nobody feels a responsibility to just continue, like, the human race? Right? To, like, repopulate your countries? Like we kind of do have a responsibility to do that, right? Like, we kind of do. Like, I mean, it's kind of the purpose of being human, right? It's to make more humans. At the most fundamental level, the purpose is to make more humans so that things can continue. And I find this such an insanely narcissistic take, such an insanely narcissistic and short-sighted and just utterly selfish viewpoint, which is very, very common. Very common. And it's not good because you end up like, if everybody does what she's doing, right? Who's going to take care of her when she's older? Like, they're just going to keep importing people from the third world who are not going to care about her. In fact, by the time she gets old, the country won't be the country she likes anymore. Right? And feminism will be long gone by that point. Long gone. So it's not going to be this progressive utopia anymore. But they can't see past their own shadows. It's amazing. These are not bright people, I'm afraid. New level of TDS has just been unlocked. So what's this? Punch Trump. A guy holding a Punch Trump thing. Oh, God. It really is deranged, isn't it? Like, there have been like 2 assassination attempts on him. That was just in the last election. There was also one in 2016 as well. So, there's actually been 3 assassination attempts on him. Like, these people, like, where do they come from? How does that happen? I guess the thing is, all these people actually liked the assassination attempt. These are all probably, the Mangione supporters as well. Yet another DC resident decided to obstruct the arrest of a black teen who attempted to skip paying the transit fare, was pepper sprayed and arrested, and is now calling it excessive force. Well, what happened? Let's see. I don't think you can actually see what happened here.
I want people to know that this is a fascist takeover of DC, and that our youth are going to be directly impacted by this.
Get out of the way. None of these words mean anything, right? Like Trump's fascist takeover of DC, right? Well, they've got very high crime, and it's the capital city of the United States, right? It's a seat of government of the United States, and you can't just have it be a just giant crime-riddled homeless encampment. Like, no country wants to tolerate that. No sane country wants to tolerate that. It's not fascism. It's just any maintenance of actual real rule of law is fascism. That's what they think. That's what they've been trained to think.
Doesn't fucking matter about me. I will be fine. Our kids will not be.
Well, maybe they won't get like shot in like a drive-by because of this, right? Maybe they'll be more fine. I don't know. I can't see anything there. I mean, they got that red thing there, highlight. I don't see what happened. I have no idea what that meant, why they put that line there. You can't see anything, but in any case, this is just the kind of, typical rhetoric, boilerplate leftist rhetoric. What's going on here? Liberal from Alaska proudly shared that her husband flipped off Russian officials while working at the airport yesterday. TDS is real. Alaska. So they got him up in Alaska.
So as you all probably guessed from my last post, I live in Anchorage, and my husband is actually an aircraft mechanic, and he obviously works at the airport. Yesterday at work, him and his coworkers were there when a bunch of Russian planes landed. Some of his coworkers are Ukrainian. And and they had the pure joy of watching my husband flip off the Russian planes as they taxied by. And I am so proud of my husband. And here is the backside of my...
So proud of him because he flipped off the planes, obviously where nobody who matters could see him. And then she's done this. Like, I weird, right? Like, that's your life. These are the things that bring you so much joy. Weird. I find it very strange. Strange people. Strange people indeed. Let's see. Streamer says something about these people's faces. They just look mentally deficient. I didn't say it. He said it, but I'm going to give it applause. Trudeau Survivor says she'll blame the patriarchy for being a childless old hag. Yeah, the one who, the young woman who says she'd rather go to prison than have kids. Yeah, that's the thing. People tend to, especially women, tend to change their mind about that once they hit about 30. Judo Survivor says, who's going to take care of her, put her on an ice float, and push her out to sea? Yeah, nobody's going to care. Xerxes says, that crazy woman will go to therapy when she becomes menopausal for not having a child. Sad. It is really sad, actually, because it's a lot. You hear so much about regret, because it's all of a sudden reality dawns. It's like, it's just going to be me. I've lost my sexual value, is what they will say. They all of a sudden realize that a lot of attention they were receiving was just based purely on their, sexual marketplace value. And once that's gone, you become invisible. And all of a sudden, the world is a lot colder, and now you don't have any family. You don't have kids. There's not going to be anybody there to take care of you when you're older. It's very sad. It's very sad the way that women are lied to by the culture these days. Because it is a prison sentence, isn't it? Isn't that kind of a prison? That's a prison sentence too. If having children is a prison sentence, then growing old and dying alone is a prison sentence as well. The other thing is too, they don't realize that now there are people that are just not meant to be mothers or fathers. Of course, they're just terrible. Usually they're just awful people, like psychopaths. But the having a child does change you. It does change you, and it changes the way you look at the world. So it's not something you can really judge as being from being a single person, because you will be a different person afterwards. The elk in Cannon Beach, Oregon, were enjoying the sun and sand a few days ago. In all my years in Oregon, I have only ever seen them in town, but not on the sand. Pretty cool. So, yeah, this is interesting. Well, I cannot play that music, but let's take a look. No, we're not playing that. Just hanging out. I mean, elk are dangerous too, right? Like, you don't want an elk can mess you up big time. So just hanging out, and there's people around. Well, it's interesting. Weird, crazy. Moscow in 1958, babies were left to sleep outside to enforce their immune system. I'm willing to bet most are still alive today if that same system hasn't yet been taken over by big pharma. So I don't know. Did they actually do that? Well, looks like they did that. I don't know. Maybe we should do a grok on it. Let's do a grok on it. Let's see. I'll go back to the chat for a second. We should start calling them spectrum piercings. Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Raider Streamer says, all that meat, all that elk meat. Judas 5 says, no dumb tourists were trying to pet the elk. Oh, well, we saw somebody trying to pet a bear yesterday or on Friday night. So, yeah, people are really dumb. Let's see. The image depicts a 1958 Moscow practice where infants slept outdoors in freezing conditions, boost immunity, a method also used in Scandinavia, where studies like one from PubMed 1994 show cold exposure slightly activates immune responses but lacks conclusive evidence of long-term benefits. This tradition aligns with historical beliefs in fresh air's health benefits, notably during the 19th century sanatorium movement for tuberculosis patients, yet modern critiques question its efficacy with no peer-reviewed data linking it to the longevity claimed in the post. So I don't know. Whatever. I wonder if they still do it. All right, let's go back. Hold on a second. There we go. All right. So I don't know. Whatevs. Whatevs. So Charlie Kirk, who's got the Cartman version of him. See, this is, I think that the South Park guys are probably a little disappointed because they went out of their way. They really tried to, I think, get the right mad at them, and they just went, no, we like it. We're glad we're in South Park. Just a badge of honor. Donald Trump flies a stealth bomber directly over Vladimir Putin's head. Welcome to America. I mean, he is a mad lad, isn't he, Trump? He is a mad lad. I mean, he knows what this symbolism means, you know? Because look, those are the planes where if it ever came to it, those are the planes that would be dropping bombs on Moscow. If it ever came to that, let's pray it never comes to that. Let's see. Why are they not wearing shoes? So here's a man here. He noticed these people in this car just dumping garbage on the road, which is awful. Like, it's just, again, like, you know, this is what is required in a civilized society for men to say, no, that's not okay. We're not just going to live in filth, right? Because it sends a message to everybody that nothing matters, right? It's like the broken windows theory of policing, right? If you look around everywhere and there's broken windows, it just kind of feels like nobody's in control. So people are more likely to commit crimes. See, this is what it takes is to just not put up with it. Say, no, you're not doing that in my civilization. And then you get slobs like this who are going to freak out, right? But, yeah. And, yeah, for some reason, they're not wearing shoes. Like, that one's not wearing shoes. He doesn't look like he's wearing shoes either. So that's not a good sign. I don't know. Anyway, that's like, what is that? Oh God. Let's get past that. So what's going here? Interesting. What is this? What is this?
High-pressure medical cryotherapy uses pressurized ultra-cold gas to intensely cool targeted areas, aiming to reduce inflammation, pain, and muscle tension.
Inflammation, pain, and muscle tension on her ass there. I think she just got back from a WNBA game where she threw something on the court. I don't know. How do they get them in there? How do they get those dills into the WNBA games? I don't know. I think that's where she was. I don't know. Let's watch.
They claim it accelerates recovery, improves mobility, and enhances healing for sports injuries, chronic conditions, and post-surgical rehabilitation treatments.
Well, that's all interesting. Now we have to do something. And I don't want to do this. I honestly don't want to do this, but I have to because it's the internet. It's the internet rules. I mean, what am I supposed to do? I've just got to do it. I don't want to. I think it's beneath myself, beneath all of us. But again, I don't make the rules. I didn't want to do that. But again, I don't make the rules. Like, I just have to do, I have to just follow protocol. So this one we cannot show until we do a premium stream. So we're going to have to watch. What is this? New Fear Unlocked. And what time is it now? I got to actually get going pretty soon. Hold on. New Fear Unlocked. This happened in Bali, Indonesia. So let's take a look.
You can save £50 per person. That's £200 off for a family of 4. We've got millions of free child place holidays available with 22 kilograms of baggage included. Book now with Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. Atronatural protected.
Ceiling snakes and big ones. Absolutely not. They need to just burn that place. You're not. There's no point even going into the ceiling and looking for the snakes. You got to burn the whole place down. The whole place has to be burned and then rebuilt again and made snake proof. Because no thanks. I tell you what, I'm canceling my ticket to Bali. I'm canceling it right now. Of course, I was never going to Bali. There's freaking ceiling snakes there. I'm not going there. Why would I go to the place that has the giant snakes in the ceiling that fall down on you when you're trying to do a number 2? No thanks. Absolutely no thanks. Never going there. Never intended to go there. They have snakes in the ceiling. No thanks. I don't care if there's a sale. No. My question is, as always, if I go to this place, someone would tell me, I flew out to this place. It was wonderful. It was great there. I always ask, is there snakes in the ceilings? If there is, I'm not going there. Mickey says, I hate snakes. Wise. Turtle says, snakes. No, exactly. That's my point. All right, let's continue. I got to wrap this up pretty quick, though, because I do have to do something tonight. This was kind of funny. Let's take a peek at this.
I'll tell you, my friend's a hunk. He's on OnlyFans. He's a guy naked on OnlyFans, and he's always complaining. Men make no money. Women are making millions. What happened to equality? I'm like, dude, nobody's going to pay to see a guy naked. It's a bummer. Like, if a guy flashes a woman on the bus, she's like, this is terrifying. Woman flashes me on the bus. I'm like, I would have paid for that. Right? I know women who are into men who are like, I'd rather see a woman naked than a guy. That's when I thought, damn, OnlyFans for men? That's our WNBA. Yeah. There's a lot of real talent out there and nobody cares, you know? Yeah. The only thing women want to see less than a naked guy is women playing basketball. Yeah. You're not watching, ladies. You know the WNBA's on strike? I made that up. All right. I've gone to a few games, only just to throw the dildo. But, just joking. All right. That is the closest we'll get to having a man on the court. But all right, okay. All right, okay. Too much. We pushed it. Went too far.
All right, that was pretty good. Not bad. I can't play this because you need to do the music. We have to save this for a premium one. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Let's see. Here's a palate cleanser. It's too much going on in this video. It's a dog with his duck friend and a cat, and they're all pals. They're like little rascals. It's pretty great. How do you end up with a duck and then a dog and a cat? It's weird. And they're all pals. So I guess the duck must have been a duckling. I don't know. Pretty fun. Pretty loud, though, I guess. But pretty good. Anyway, that's a palate cleanser. This is good. I didn't see it coming. I should have. I didn't, though. It was good, though. Let's see. How about this one? Let's take a peek. I hate how spot on this is. I think this is actually old. It's been around for a while. I think I remember watching this ages ago, but some things are classics. Let's take a look.
Our first question, 1 + 1. Yes.
2.
Incorrect. Yes.
Multiculturalism.
Well done, Simon. Next question, what is 3 × 3? Yes.
9.
Wrong. Yes, Penelope. Gender equality. Very good, Penelope.
Is this a joke?
You think gender equality is a joke?
No, but isn't this a maths class?
Don't be so racist.
I just asked a question.
We don't ask questions. Questions are offensive.
Yeah! Let me see this. They've just written equality and drawn love hearts on a piece of paper.
He expressed himself and it's beautiful.
He didn't even spell equality correctly.
We don't discriminate.
This has nothing to do with mathematics.
You think you're so great with your maths and your science and your facts. What about feelings, huh?
Yeah. Feelings are more important than facts.
This is wrong. You're all crazy.
Stop violating me with your different opinions.
I have the right to speak my mind.
No, we have the right not to be offended.
And that's more important.
I mean, the crazy thing is, like, that's more real than it actually is satire, right? Like, it's just, I've seen classes like students freaking out at lectures and stuff. Like, it's really the exact same thing. It's kind of crazy. What about this one here? Let's watch this. So, yeah, I guess there are a few Americans who did flee the Orange Man to Canada. Big mistake, really. Big mistake.
Goodbye, Donald Trump. We're finally moving to Canada.
Oh, you guys are actually doing it this time. Sick. Well, welcome to Canada, where the average house is 3 times less affordable than in America, where wages have fallen by 15% in real terms over the last 10 years, where homelessness has doubled over the last 4 years, where a judge ruled that you're legally allowed to identify as a woman in order to get cheaper car insurance, where it's now a criminal offense to hold over $10,000 of cash, but you're allowed to buy cocaine with a credit card, where we spent $40 billion this year to lower our CO2 emissions by 4 megatons, only for China to emit the same amount in 2.5 hours, and where your guy is probably just going to buy us and make us the 51st state when we go bankrupt anyways. But hey, at least we've got fully subsidized birth control, state-funded media, and hassle-free euthanasia.
Have to be an idiot to move to Canada from the United States. I guess there's too much prosperity down there, too much freedom. There are, of course, people who do want the boot on their face, though. I mean, Canada's full of them, right? And there are lots in the United. Look, it's not like Trump won the election by 40 points. Like, you ended up winning by what, like 2 points or something in the popular vote when everything was counted. So even though he obviously got the House, he got the Senate, he got the popular vote, right? Still, it's not like he won by like 20 points or 10 points. It was still perilously close, really. If you total together all the votes in the swing states, wasn't that many, even though he got all of them. So there are a lot of people who don't even care about their own well-being. It's just fashion, political fashion. They would love the Canadian media, though. They would love it because you don't have that pesky Fox News in Canada. You don't have anything on a screen, corporate-wise, Global News, CTV, CBC, that would contradict their beliefs in any way. So they'd fit right in that sense. This is just another palate cleanser. They have been taught to wait for their slower friend before starting their meal. So who's their friend? It's a turtle. This is great.
朝ごはんの時間です。準備ができました。では、どうぞ。
I think that's a Japanese person. I like Japanese people. I think we'll see. You know what? I think we need to, because I do have to do something, you guys. So I think we're going to save the rest of this for Tuesday night. I think we have to save it. We've been going 2 hours and 20 minutes. Sorry to cut it short, you guys, but yeah, I do have to get something done. So we will cut it short. I'll do the chat quickly, and then we'll get out of here. Let's see. Spambot says feelings before reality. Yes. Well, I always say, like, the modern left, the progressive left, the illiberal left, right? It is literally just what feels progressive. It's what feels acceptable in their bubble, right? In their race communist, gender communist bubble. There's no principles involved. JDL says, hit that like button. Everybody hit that like button and get your free dose of Radio Baloney. Good karma. I'm not saying your life is going to be awful and you're going to ruin your life if you don't do it and something terrible is going to happen to you. I'm just saying I would hit that button if I was you. I would do it. Also, I would subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. Super important thing to do. Everybody's doing that right now. Apparently, it's really popular. Let's see. I heard that like Obama subscribed to the channel. No, he didn't. Why would he do that? That's crazy. You can tell that communism was beget from feminism. Well, I think feminism actually is kind of from communism. It's a weapon of the commies. Let's see. Rogue Thought says, I think this is from 2017-18. It said that it still applies, only more so. Yeah, I think you're about right there. That's classroom skit. Yeah, I think it was around then too. Yeah, it's quite old. Yeah, it is amazing that it still applies. More so now. JDL, good to see you. Sorry we can't hang out more. Art class segment. We watched that last time. We watched that. Did we watch that on Friday night? I think we might have watched it on Friday night. We can do it again next time, though. We'll save that for the next premium stream. Rogue Thought says, a useful idiot. Let's see. Spambot has a good point here. Wind turbines are like strippers. They stop working when you stop throwing money at them. Exactly. I've never actually seen a wind turbine working. I've seen them before. I just never actually seen one actually doing anything. Radio Streamer says, I've seen so many numbers that make no sense. It's more like 20, 30 points depending on the state. Well, you've got the red states and the blue states, right? But the swing states, it wasn't like 20, 30 points. Let's see. Radio Streamer says, if you redistrict correctly, then I bet it's a red tidal wave. Well, they're doing that in Texas, and then the blue states are freaking out like Gavin Newsom and threatening to do the same. The problem is in like Illinois or New York or in California is that you can't get blood from a stone. They've already done it to the max. So that's the problem they're going to run into. And then when they, do a proper census as well, that's going to be a major problem for them when it's just citizens counted. Because that determines how many people there are, regardless of their status, affects how many districts they are. So Trump is looking to fix that. Rogue Thought says, too big to rig, more like big enough to overcome the corruption. Doesn't roll off the tongue, though. Well, he didn't have the same level of mail-in ballots and ballot harvesting because there had been steps taken around that. The Democrats had some major advantages in 2020 that they didn't have in this one. And I'm talking about the ability to be totally and utterly corrupt. All right, Ottawa James, good to see you, but I'm afraid we're getting out here early tonight. We're only doing about 2.5 hours, which is a bummer. It's a bummer, but I do have to go though because I got stuffs I got to do's. Let's see. Radio Streamer says I hit the like button, and Hillary did not kill myself. Rosie said, I hit the like button and Obama did not join Radio Baloney. Well, it's just good karma for the channel, isn't it? It's good karma. All right. Xerxes says, I thought it was you can't get blood from a turnip. Well, I think it's can't get blood from a turnip or from a stone. I think you can do either. They're both acceptable. All right. Well, that's it, you guys. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks to the chat, of course. You guys are what makes it fun for me to do this in the first place. I would not do it if you weren't here, if you guys didn't show up. So just to recap plans, we are not doing a premium only stream tomorrow. We'll wait till next Monday. But we will be back on Tuesday, 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Everybody have a great start to your week, and I hope to see you all on Tuesday. Great. Have a good night, everyone.